There is a moment every gardener knows. You're at the checkout, receipt in hand. In your trunk sits a flat of seedlings that cost more than the vegetables they'll ever produce. You don't notice it the first time, or the second. It takes a few seasons, the soil bags, the plastic six-packs, the starter kits, before you start doing the math at the register. And once you start, you can't stop. The wilted transplant that never took. The $6 rosemary plant next to the $8 potting mix, next to the $12 fertilizer, all promising a harvest that never quite arrives. So you buy the bigger bag next time, the premium seedlings next time, and the grocery bill stays exactly the same. I didn't grow up on a farm. What I do is simpler and more useful. I read the research, university extension bulletins, root physiology studies, agronomy papers most gardening channels never open. Then I test what they claim against what actually happens in real soil, real containers, on a real budget. That's taught me to spot the difference between advice that sounds right and advice that is right. Those two get confused constantly because the version that sounds right is usually the version that's easier to sell you. A root system doesn't care how confident someone sounds on camera. It only responds to what's true. That's the lens for this whole video. Not tradition for tradition's sake, not life hacks dressed up as science, just the actual mechanics of how a seed becomes food and the gap between that biology and what gets marketed to you. That gap is where the wasted money lives. Once you see it, you stop paying for it. Here's what nobody at the garden center will tell you. They didn't always have a nursery aisle. For most of agricultural history, a garden was a packet of seeds, a patch of dirt, and knowledge of which plants tolerate being moved. That's it. That was the whole technology. Then the industry found something more profitable than selling seeds, selling you the plant itself, already started, already de-risked, already convenient. Convenience is real, I won't pretend it isn't. But convenience and value are not the same thing, and the industry has every incentive to blur that line. Here's the reframe: the seedling was never the product. The knowledge of which plants can handle a transplant, that was always the product. A six-pack of carrot seedlings doesn't fail because carrots are hard to grow. It fails because carrots have a brittle taproot that cannot survive being lifted out of a cell tray. Nobody told you that before you paid for it. Once you know a plant's root architecture, once you know if it's a mover or a diver, you don't need the nursery to decide for you. You can decide yourself for the price of a $3 seed packet instead of a $12 tray. That knowledge doesn't expire. It doesn't get marked up. It's yours the moment you understand it, and that's worth more than anything on that shelf. Before I show you a single crop, I'm going to say something that might annoy the garden centers. There's popular advice going around that buying starter plants is always the smart move, that you're saving time and guaranteeing success by skipping seeds entirely. For half this list, that's not just wrong, it's costing you money. Here's why. Some plants have fibrous root systems: tomatoes, peppers, kale. Transplanting doesn't just tolerate disruption, it stimulates the roots to branch out stronger. Cornell research found cabbages transplanted twice had the largest root systems at maturity. For those crops, a starter plant makes sense. Other plants, brittle taproots, fragile fast-spreading roots, do not respond that way. Disturb them and you get stunted growth, forking, transplant shock, sometimes total failure. For those crops, a nursery seedling isn't a shortcut. It's a plant that was already halfway to failing before you got it home. Garden centers sell both types the same way, in the same plastic cells, at the same markup. They won't tell you which is which. We will. I'd rather you know the difference than hand over $12 for a plant doomed the moment it left the tray. Crop 1, leafy herbs: basil, cilantro, parsley, rosemary. Highest ROI on this list: fresh culinary herbs. The waste isn't the herb, it's the packaging. A grocery store clamshell of basil costs $3 or $4 for a handful of sprigs that turn slimy in 4 days, whether you use them or not. You're not buying basil, you're buying a plastic box with a short shelf life, over and over, every week, for the rest of your life, unless something changes. Here's what's actually happening. Basil, cilantro, and parsley respond to cutting by producing denser growth. The more you harvest, the more they grow back. It's not a one-time harvest. It's a plant that rewards you for taking from it. Here's what to do. Direct sow basil and cilantro once nighttime temps sit above 50 degrees F. No starter plants, no markup. For rosemary or mint, skip seeds. Take a 4 to 6 inch cutting, root it in a glass of water on your windowsill. 2 to 3 weeks, you'll have roots ready to transplant. A permanent herb supply, propagated free from one grocery store purchase. Cut just above a leaf node, never strip the whole plant, and it keeps producing all season. Surplus, freeze chopped herbs in olive oil in an ice cube tray or turn a batch into pesto, both keep for months. Caution, this logic is specific to cut-and-come-again herbs. It does not transfer to single harvest crops later on this list. Keep harvesting. A carrot the same way just damages it. One herb bed, seeded for under $3, can replace over $100 a year in clamshells. Crop 2, cut-and-come-again salad leaves, lettuce, spinach, arugula, chard. Lettuce, spinach, arugula, chard. The problem isn't the greens, it's decay. Bagged salad mixes sit sealed, and that sealed environment speeds up bacterial breakdown. A bag half full of slime, tossed after 3 days, bought again the next week. Here's what's actually happening. A home bed lets you harvest leaf by leaf, just in time, instead of stockpiling and watching it rot in a bag. That shift alone kills the waste. Direct sow into loose, well-draining soil. Cut out leaves, leave the center growing point intact, and new leaves grow back within days. Arugula's fastest, ready in 3 weeks. In hot weather, standard lettuce bolts and turns bitter. Use heat-tolerant varieties, Jericho, Muir, black-seeded Simpson. Caution, don't sow the whole packet at once. That's a whole bed bolting on the same day. Sow a small row every 2 weeks for a rolling harvest instead. One seed packet can replace dozens of clamshells a season, easily over $100. Crop 3, vertical pole beans, Kentucky Wonder, Blue Lake, Borlotti. Climbing pole beans. This isn't a crop problem, it's a space problem. Bush beans sprawl low and flat for a modest yield. Most people plant them that way by default, not because it's efficient. Pole beans grow vertically, same footprint, up to 3 times the yield. A single well-managed bed can produce over 30 pounds in a season. Direct sow after your last frost, at the base of a trellis or bamboo teepee. Pick mature pods every 2 to 3 days, non-negotiable. Leave pods on the vine, and the plant thinks its job is done and stops producing. Constant picking keeps it going all season. Caution, rotate beds year to year. Beans fix nitrogen in the soil, a real benefit, wasted if you plant beans in the same spot on repeat. Freeze them, can them as dilly beans, or dry them on the vine for winter. One trellis, minimal space, real return. Crop 4, zucchini and summer squash, the high-waste pitfall. And now, the one most people get wrong, zucchini. Zucchini isn't a bad crop. It's one of the highest yield plants on this list. 2 plants, dozens of zucchini a season. The waste isn't the plant, it's how almost everyone buys it. Seedlings look harmless in their plastic cell packs, but zucchini roots grow fast and aggressive, root-bound within days of germinating. By the time that seedling looks ready to buy, its roots are already cramped and circling. Transplant it, and it goes into shock, wilting, damaged vines, stunted growth. Some never recover. You paid $6 for a plant that was compromised before it left the store. Skip the seedling. Direct sow straight into soil at least 65 degrees F. No transplant shock, no root-bound cell packs, no gamble. A seed packet costs about the same as one seedling and gives you seeds for multiple plants, multiple seasons. Caution, don't sow into cold soil early. The seeds rot before they germinate. This is the one crop where the convenient option is quietly the worst financial decision on the list. Crop 5, cherry tomatoes, Sungold black cherry, gardener's delight. Cherry tomatoes. Unlike zucchini, a starter plant makes sense here. Tomatoes are movers, their roots get stronger from transplanting, not weaker. don't skip that step. The waste in this crop shows up somewhere else, the checkout counter. Premium cherry tomatoes cost more because they bruise easily in transport. That same fragility is exactly why growing them yourself pays off. One healthy plant can produce up to 50 pounds of fruit in a season. Buy or start one transplant per household, not a full flat. One plant, given a deep container and consistent water, will outproduce what most families can eat fresh. Caution: in cooler climates, flowers sometimes fail to set fruit. Vibrate the blossoms with a cotton swab or electric toothbrush to help pollination, a 5-second fix. One plant, dozens of pounds, that's the return. Crop 6, root vegetables, carrots, beets, radishes, turnips. Carrots, beets, radishes, turnips. The seedling trap, again, and the math is brutal. Root vegetables are single yield, one seed, one carrot. A 6-pack of carrot seedlings for $4 gives you 6 carrots, 67 cents a carrot, for a vegetable that costs pennies at the store. These are diver plants, a single brittle taproot. Disturb it during transplanting and it forks, stunts, deforms permanently. A misshapen carrot isn't cosmetic, it's evidence the root was already damaged. Direxao Always. A $3 packet has hundreds of seeds, hundreds of potential carrots, for less than one seedling 6-pack. Caution: thin your seedlings once they sprout. Crowded roots compete and stay small and twisted, no matter how carefully you sowed them. Few things prove the seedling markup problem faster than paying 67 cents for a carrot. Crop 7, fall brassicas, kale, collard greens, broccoli. Kale, collard greens, broccoli. This is a timing mistake, not a plant problem. Spring-sown brassicas mature right as summer heat peaks, bolting, bitterness, aphids. People blame the plant, it's the calendar. Brassicas sown in midsummer establish in warm weather, then mature in cool autumn, exactly when they perform best. Kale and collards tolerate down to 20 degrees F, so one planting keeps producing fresh greens deep into winter, right as grocery prices climb. Sow mid to late summer for a fall harvest, not spring. Seeds or transplants both work. Brassicas tolerate disturbance fine. Caution: don't sow too early into summer heat. Same bolting problem, right back. Right timing, wrong season, that's the gap between a bitter, aphid-ridden bed and greens still producing after everyone else's garden has gone dormant. Crop 8, fall peas, sugar snap, snow peas, shelling peas. Sugar snap, snow peas, shelling peas. Most people only think spring. That's a missed window, not a rule. Peas sweeten as they mature in cool air. The drop in temperature converts more starch to sugar right before harvest. Sow mid to late summer for a fall crop. Direct sow along a trellis or fence. Climbing varieties use space better than bush types. Caution: peas are heat sensitive during germination. Sowing in still warm soil, keep it consistently moist or germination drops fast. The real value isn't just savings, it's flavor. Fall matured peas taste noticeably sweeter than anything frozen or store-bought because commercial peas are picked before the sugar conversion peaks. One of the few crops where growing your own isn't just cheaper, it's simply better. Crop 9, garlic. The mistake is simple: planting cloves from a grocery store bulb. Grocery garlic is often treated with growth inhibitors to extend shelf life, which also suppresses sprouting. Plant it, and you're gambling on cloves that were never meant to grow. Source real seed garlic from a garden center or catalog. Plant cloves in late summer or early autumn as soil cools. They build roots underground all winter, emerge fast in spring, and harvest the following summer. Caution: don't plant undersized cloves. Bigger clove, bigger bulb, one of the few crops where what you plant directly predicts what you get. Garlic asks for almost nothing once it's in the ground. No fertilizing schedule, minimal watering, no real pest pressure. One planting in late summer closes out the list. A full season of high-value crops, most costing next to nothing to start, if you know which ones to seed and which ones never belonged in a plastic 6-pack. Walk into any garden center in spring, count the seedling trays, the soil bags, the fertilizer bottles, the starter kits, promising foolproof results. Turn them over and read the fine print. Most are selling convenience dressed up as necessity. Same basic biology, repackaged at a markup, for every crop, whether that crop needs the help or not. Nobody designed this system to waste your money. I'm not saying there's a room full of executives plotting against home gardeners. It's worse than that, in a way, because it's not a conspiracy. It's just an industry with no incentive to tell you which plants don't need what they're selling. A root-bound zucchini seedling looks identical to a healthy one on the shelf. A carrot six-pack looks like a bargain if you don't know a taproot from a fibrous root. The confusion isn't intentional, but it's profitable, whether anyone selling it would admit that or not. The only real defense is exactly what we just went through. Know your plant before you reach for your wallet. This only helps if you actually use it. That's the whole point of putting this out, not to sell you anything, but to save you money you were about to spend without realizing it. If this changes how you shop for seeds versus seedlings this season, that's the entire return I'm looking for. Want more of this, the actual biology behind what works and what's just marketing? Subscribe and send this to the one person in your life who always overspends at the garden center every spring. No product, no course, no link, just pass it on. Now look at your own garden plans for this year. What's actually sitting in your cart, or about to be? Which of these 9 are you already growing right? And which one, if you're honest, is the overpriced seedling tray you almost bought out of habit? Tell me 2 things in the comments. Which crop on this list surprised you most, and the most money you've ever wasted on a plant that didn't make it? I read every comment. Some of the best lessons in this video came straight from gardeners in the comments, just like these. None of this is complicated. Not really. It's not some secret technique or expert-level skill. It's the difference between knowing a plant and guessing at it. The gardeners who never waste money on a nursery shelf aren't smarter than you. They didn't get lucky. They just learned to ask one question before they buy anything. Does this plant actually need help, or is it just being sold to me? That question costs nothing, and once you start asking it, you don't stop.